Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets used the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country.
We too feel alone. We too feel alone. We too feel alone. We too feel alone. That place in my mind is that space that you call mine. That place in my mind is that space that you call mine. Where have I been all this time? Lost in sliding fatal decline. I've been waiting for this to unfold, but my pieces are only as good as the whole. Severed myself from my own life, cut off the only thing that was right. What if I never saw you again? I'd die right next to you in the end. That place in my mind is that space that you call mine. That place in my mind is that space that you call mine. I won't let you walk away without hearing what I have to say. Without hearing what I have to say. Without hearing what I have to say.
You know, that's what I felt. I've met a lot of Christians recently since, you know, you and your friend helped me to make better decisions, renounce the occult. And there's so many of them that want me to do this or do this. And it's like, there's just like a doctrine of you're a Christian, you have to do this now. But with you, what I feel like was really inviting and special for me was, you know, you never pushed your religious ideals. You just said, I needed to build my relationship with God and I needed to get to know him. And I think that that is the best approach, because the more that I've done that, the more I've prayed. I mean, I've had full blown like memory flashbacks. I had a flashback to a time when I was a kid and I almost drove a golf cart into a pond because I wanted to look at the fish. And I almost took me and my friend into the river. That was shortly after our prayer, where it's just like weird little things kept coming back. And I'm like, there's something to this. And I've been praying so hard, because there's so many people that haven't been wanting me to do this podcast because they think that I'm obsessive and that I'm conspiratorial and that I'm too political. And I've really let people get into my head. And I've just been praying for God, show me a sign that I know is from you, that can't possibly be from anything else. No voices in my head, nothing from Shamrock. I need something from you to tell me that what I am doing is the right thing. To which God said, okay, it's been a year since you started speaking out, September 11th, just about to the day. I am going to send an anti-fascist named Tyler to kill somebody that you respect. And I don't mean that in a vindictive, vicious way. I mean, I think that this is all part of God's will, and I am going to take that as a sign. Because, you know, as I've shared with you and others publicly, it's, look at Larry. Look at the stories that I've shared. When I read the manifestos from these shooters, I recognize all of this, the coded numbers, the demon in the mirror. I think what's starting to scare me with my realization over the last few weeks is that this seems to be, it's certainly targeted in other individuals. I think that there's different assets, officials, acts of espionage. There's some more specific targeting, but I really want to get your take on this. I'm really believing that this MK Ultra thing, that this mind washing, that it's just gone everywhere at this point, and it's just all the time. It scares me.
Yeah. So I'm sure some of your listeners are familiar with the now deceased RIP Russ Dizdar. Russ Dizdar was a Christian individual, but he delved deep into working with local police departments and educating them in occult crime. They worked on solving occult crime cold cases. They worked with mentoring and counseling survivors of ritual abuse and satanic ritual abuse. And he knew a lot about the trauma-based mind control methods, the super soldier operatives, the various alters and DID that becomes involved with people who have been tormented in this way. Now, he wrote a book that's unfortunately out of print now. When he passed away, all his books went out of print, and you can still find them, but they're astronomically overpriced. And so he wrote a book called The Black Awakening, and it was written as a fiction novel because he was ahead of his time. And if he had written this sort of stuff as disclosure, he probably wouldn't have been around much longer. And the fact that he's not around right now does give me pause. But in this book, he talked about a moment in time where the switch would be flipped, and these hundreds of thousands, if not more, of people who have either through hard or soft touch programming. And what I mean by that is there are people who have actually been dragged underground, actually dragged into labs, military, secret society, occult-based operations where they had their physical hands on these kids. But you can also do this type of trauma-based mind control in the astral realm. Which is where my research really dives in deep. These people that are about 3 years old get targeted, and their entire life they have sleep paralysis, which is usually an indication that they're being astrally abducted, and they come back from those dreams not remembering much. And if they do remember, they think it's a dream, and they don't understand that this is also a grooming trauma-based mind control program that they're undergoing as well. So to just take targeted individuals, people who've been gang stalked, RA survivors, SRA survivors, DID, if you just think that the potential of triggered individuals that are programmed are in those groups, you're wrong. There are hundreds of thousands more people who their entire life have been undergoing this astrally, who may not even understand that that's what's happening to them. And so Russ talked about a time where we can talk about that, flipped the switch, and all of these latent super soldiers, their programming gets switched on. And now think about what's just happened in the last week here. You've had one public shooter, and it has dominated every news station, every internet channel, every social media channel, all of the services that have to do all of the research and the ballistics. And that's one shooter. Now what happens when a switch gets flipped and people who are addicted to their screens and are plugged in all day hear that trigger word, and now you potentially have 500,000 shooters grabbing their weapon and going out to the nearest public place because they just got triggered. Now what happens? You do not have the resources to control that sort of a situation. And that's what Russ fictionalized in his book years ago. He was so ahead of his time. People thought he was a lunatic. And here we're already at a place a decade later where, because of predictive programming and because of soft disclosure and because of real victims and survivors that are telling their story, we are moving away from the archaic satanic panic of the 1980s. And we're coming to realize through people like you, Tyler, who have come out of these organizations and who are blowing whistles, that this isn't all just satanic panic, that there is a grip on this planet. And that's why I said at the beginning of the show, we got to stop all these divisive little bickerings between men and women and atheists and Christians and what else? Now we got to fight about what generation we're from. Oh, you're Gen X and I'm a millennial. Who cares? Like we're bickering over all of this stupidity when what we need to do is band together collectively as a intelligent human race and start identifying the real enemies.